What up, guys? Welcome to the Just Pearly Things YouTube channel, and welcome to another episode here at the Audacity Network. Today, I have two special guests on the channel. The first is Michael Lee, aka Mr. Silk. He has an academic background in communication and behavioral science that he has been adapting practical methods in the dating scene. We also have Ice White, who has the channel Game Global and is a dating coach and best-selling author. Welcome to the show, guys. How are you?
I'm good, Pearl. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Perfect. Great to be back. Let's go.
So today we're going to be having, a general conversation about men, women, and relationships. So to start the show, I thought a good question would be, what do women want in men and relationships?
Well, I think it has been a lot of misconception out there today, because when we look at the Western world and what men think women want in relationship, it's mostly about passive value. You either have to look very good, or you have to have a lot of money, a great career, and status within that one as well. And that is not what I believe is what women want today in relationships. Because I believe much more that what women want today is actually men being real. So many men out there have been so hyped about being someone in order to come up in the same attractiveness level as beautiful women. And it just doesn't work that way. So that is what I believe women actually want in men. They want normal men. They can behave normally. And we rarely see that today.
Can I have an example of what a woman would disqualify and what a woman would say yes to? Like, how do we tend to disqualify men and deem them as not normal?
Okay, so what women know, specifically those women that have a lot of male attention, they know their spell power over men. So, I mean, most beautiful men, most beautiful women are just normal people. And when men coming up to them and really get spelled by the beauty, they become overly friendly, and their interpersonal communication skills get really damaged by that kind of spell. And most of the time when they're coming up to the women, they just can't talk normally. It's all about rambling about themselves. They're putting themselves a lot in focus. They're trying to, convey ideas, interesting stories, being playful, being funny, and all that in order to, in some way, impress the women. And I've seen that over and over again. If you just look how men behave in front of beautiful women, we will see that the human behavior in normal conversation is not really there. It is a lot of, compromised conversation based on how men feels. And there is a scientific reason for it. And it has to do with the spike of neurotransmitters in men's brain. They get released when they see something beautiful. And those neurotransmitters are directly linked to attraction, sexual attraction, bonding, and love itself. So that is how men really feel when they see beautiful women. And when men trying to behave normally, which is almost impossible when you feel something like that, women can see that instantly. You probably have been in that situation many times when the guys find you attractive. For example, he goes up and he talks with you, and you just look at him and you can just feel it, that there is something with him that is not really a normal conversation based, like a normal person talking with you. Because you have co-workers, you have your family you're talking normally to, and you know how normal people act in front of you. They don't have any romantic interest. But when guys is coming up to you and find you attractive, the whole conversation is actually getting compromised, and women can see that. And many times women disqualify that directly. They just want men that can behave real to them, have a normal conversation to them, not being this person that put her into the center of the universe in terms of her beauty and then behaving accordingly, if you get what I mean. Mm-hmm. It's a huge problem today, really.
Just today, for example, I run Game Global, so we have the biggest network of wingmen in the world. And normally we get guys, well, sometimes we get guys who are kind of off the mark and they kind of think that a man needs certain things, certain specific things, oddly specific things, in order to get a woman, as if it's the only way. So, one person today, for example, was so intentional on believing in the fact that a man needs a Lamborghini in order to have a woman fall in love with him. Like this stuff is
A
just ridiculous to
Lambo.
me. Obvious, like
For the two
a
women,
Lam- get your
the two women watching, have you dated anyone with a Lambo? Like I haven't. Sorry, go ahead.
exactly. Did your dad have a fucking Lamborghini? How the fuck were you born? Like, are you? This is some nonsensical stuff that I see all the time. That's the extreme side, but there is some truth in the fact that some women may be into that kind of person. But this stuff is extremely vague. Not everyone has a Lamborghini, but people are trying to have sex all the time. So that to think that you need certain requirements, like you have to be 6 foot tall, you have to be a millionaire. These are just ridiculous things that are implanted in some people's minds, and it's becoming dangerous for a lot of guys out there because it not only damages your own chances, but it's harming your own mindset and preventing you from actually doing things that help you go forward. And if you're just making excuses saying, well, I don't have a Lamborghini, I'm never going to get a woman, then you're never going to get a woman because you're never going to do anything in order to try. So finding your own uniqueness, having some kind of personality that does not depend on having a Lamborghini. Like I was saying today, I'm glad I grew up poor because my personality would then have to rely on finding myself rather than trying to show off like crazy expensive possessions. That is not me. In some alternative universe, there could be a version of me that is extremely materialistic, and that will attract gold diggers if you frame it in the wrong way. But if you're smart about these kinds of things, you don't need to rely on having certain things. Like here's a big one for a lot of guys. The height argument, of course. A lot of guys think they have to be tall. Like seriously, I'm a tall guy. I'm 6'2". So some people may not want to listen to my advice about this. But if you are short, I believe if I was short too, I would follow this to the fucking letter. I would see it as my superpower being short because you would be able to stand out. And you having a woman on your arm, especially an attractive one, that makes you look really good. That makes you look better than me, a tall person with the same woman in my arm. You being smaller than me with the same woman in a different context, that makes you look better than I would because you're smaller. So you get the, well, not attention necessarily, but it looks so much better. So being short is a superpower. Any weaknesses, flip them upside down and turn them into your strengths.
So do you guys feel as though women, or do you guys think that women are picky?
Well,
They have to be, but go ahead.
yeah. Okay, so what I think when it comes to pickiness of women, I believe it is not what men are thinking today. When people are thinking that, when men are thinking women being picky, they're thinking in terms of passive value trait, as what I just mentioned, that they are picky with the wallet that men have. Does he have a thick wallet? Is he rich? Is he handsome? Does he take care of himself in terms of extreme physical training, for example, and all that? So men think that they have to be really on the top of the game in so many different fields, like making money, going to the gym, in some way being pretty cool in terms of having a great lifestyle and so on. I don't believe that that is what women are picky for. There are some gold diggers, as what I also mentioned, that I believe exist. But if we want to talk about the rule itself, not women that belongs to the exception of the rule, women are not really picky based on those things. What I've seen based on close to 1,000 of clients that I've coached, including myself, having, you know, a lot of experience approaching and dating women, what I've seen is that the women pickiness today is actually to be with someone who is real, behaving real towards you, can talk normally towards you and being curious about you. Just someone who is real. And that real is actually quite rare today. There are so many guys that can't be real. And that is a huge problem in the society when it comes to the dynamic between men and women. Being real. And we're going to go, later in this podcast, we're going to go through what I mean with being real. But in all sense, being real is what women are craving for. That is what I've seen.
And do you guys think that's different with what the manosphere says women want?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you go ahead, Ice. I mean, we know how manosphere works.
Or do you guys consider yourself a part of it? Or
Yeah,
no?
I'll keep
You
it
don't?
short, but similar to what I kind of said, there's like, sorry, you cut off there. What are you saying?
Sorry. And do you guys consider yourself a part of it? Maybe it would be good to, like, do you guys consider yourself red pill manosphere? Like, do you consider yourself a part of it also?
So me being essentially some people in the comments seem the Joe Rogan of the manosphere. Who even knows what the manosphere even is? There's the producer of Louis Theroux's documentaries had a meeting with me just about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we were talking about like what the manosphere actually is. Manosphere is about men, but in the media, it's about heterosexual men. Aren't gay men part of the manosphere? They're men, so why are they excluded from it? Not to say that I think it's used in kind of like with bad intent when it's especially in media context, but yeah, I wouldn't parade around saying, hey, I'm a manosphere person, but if someone wants to label me as a manosphere person because I'm a man, then I suppose that makes me a manosphere person. But essentially, having built Game Global, people see me as the person who filled the vacuum of the community, the pickup community, and the person who made that happen has to be associated with the manosphere in some way if they feel like that. But to be honest, I don't really care. It's a label. Whatever it has to do with me, maybe I could be a good example because I'm a married man. If you want to run game, run pickup artistry for your end goal, and that end goal is marriage and having a family, that's a great end goal to have, and I'm an example of that. So let me be a good example, if I may.
Okay. And so what do you...
I wouldn't...
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I wouldn't consider myself as someone who is part of the manosphere category or the red pill. And that has to do with my scientific studies I've done in the area of relationship building. And within the relationship building, attraction is a big part of it. And when we look at the scientific data in that field, there is nothing I've seen in the manosphere community or in the red pill community that actually have real scientific backing. And now we're talking about things that have been studying, Ivy League school have been studying this one since 1950s, interpersonal communication and relationship building. We have solid scientific data of how that works. And I've seen nothing like that in the manosphere, red pill community or the pickup artist community as well. So I cannot really take ideas that are not really scientifically proven and principles that are not proven either. So that's my response to that question.
Okay. So I guess how are your beliefs different than what they believe in terms of like what women want, what is attraction?
Okay, so if we're going to look at what attraction actually is, it is actually neurotransmitters that get released in the brain, both in females and males. Mm-hmm. But in the route to get them released are different between men and women. You see? So there have been a lot of research made in this topic. And specifically now, in the later years, we have been able to use, neural imaging, also functional MRIs and so on, to really measure the releases of neurotransmitters, to really determine that the theories that have been studying since 1950s is actually valid today. And what we have seen now, for example, is that when men are seeing beautiful women, their brain releases strong amount of neurotransmitters strongly connected with attraction, sexual attraction, bonding, and love itself. We're now talking about dopamine, endorphins, serotonin, and oxytocin. They did the same study with women. And what do you think they saw in the neural imaging? Nothing. Almost nothing happened when women saw beautiful men. Okay. Also, when they saw men, they also experimented. They wanted to make it more complex. So they actually put men in powerful positions. Like men that were not only handsome, but they look like they are in a high status area, such as work, for example, like they are a doctor, they are someone who has been successful in the business industry and so on. And yet it didn't trigger them much. The only thing they saw was a small release of dopamine. And that was an indicator of interest only, that she might want to know more about him. But there was nothing like how men felt when they saw something attractive. It was just sick comparison, really. So what is then my belief that we can do as men when it comes to attraction? Well, we have to look at what element actually triggered attraction in women, the real elements. And there is another study that has been made. A lot of studies have been made by universities all over the world. But Harvard made a very interesting study, Harvard University Cognitive Lab. So what they did was to measure the neurotransmitters release in female brains in communication. So they actually did it in two ways. One way was when women were listening to something very interesting, an interesting storyteller, an interesting joker, like a comedian, and so on. And what they saw in the female brain was a small release of dopamine, almost the same as what they saw in women when they saw beautiful men. Not so much happened there. But then they made vice versa. It's like we're asking the questions to women instead and let them talk about what they think about things and about themselves in depth. It was not until then when they saw a huge spike of neurotransmitters in the same way as what men saw when they saw beautiful women. So we could replicate that effect when women were talking about themselves, but have to be in a certain depth. It wasn't exactly as strong, but the exposure of those neurotransmitters was very stable and could even increase with time. So now we're getting somewhere when it comes to attraction. What actually triggers attraction in women? And that is very, very interesting. So the answer to your question is, that is what I believe in, because that is what we have been proven triggers attraction in women. In contrast to routine-based game or scripted game or something like that, where we're taking a lot of external factors to trigger attraction in women. It doesn't really work that way. We have to trigger attraction internally. And we're doing that with interpersonal communication.
Would you say that's another way to say that women like men that are charming?
Yeah. You could say that. You could say that. But when you look at charisma and being charming, it involves more than one-liner most of the time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, I mean, if we look at the charisma code and being charming and so on, it's much more about how a man can make a woman feel in conversations and interactions rather than trying to say something funny, taking out of thin air. Absolutely. So that is what I believe is a huge factor.
I've seen men date women very out of their league looks wise, but they're funny or charming. I could see that. Yeah. I could totally see that.
Absolutely. I mean, there is not so big difference. And now I think a lot of people from the red pill community is going to scream now. But there is not so big difference between being pretty average, dating women, and being someone who is pretty handsome and dating women. Mm-hmm. We're not talking about the homeless person living on the street here. We're talking about a pretty good, decent looking guy, comparing that with someone who's really handsome. And who is being successful in something compared with the average man with a pretty average job, the difference between those two can be huge if none of them know how to communicate with women. But if both of them could communicate with women, the difference between those two become like almost equal.
It's almost like a
And
different.
we'll see that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to
No,
say it's almost like a different language that you guys have to learn to talk to us because
Yes.
yeah.
Absolutely.
That's what it's
So-
like. I noticed
So
in men that work in more I guess rough fields where they're not really around women, it's like a learning adjustment as they get older to like say things in a different way so we don't get offended, or it's more palatable, or we answer questions more, whatever.
Yeah, so here comes the tricky part, Pearl. Here's comes the tricky part is that in order to be able to communicate in this way that actually trigger the neurotransmitters in women, we have to take things in depth. And that is what communication skills comes in. And my main advisors are professors from universities in communication, basically, and people that work in professional fields and so on. And what we have seen here is that no one knows real empathetic communication skills unless they are schooled. So what happens when we have a bunch of men out there in the society that don't know how to communicate in a way that triggers attraction in women? What happens then? Well, the attractionness level between men and women are completely unbalanced. And I remember you saying one time that, women don't bring so much to the table in relationship, basically. So if we look at it objectively, yeah, you might be right. They don't do anything. They just exist, right? But if you're going to look at the brain and how the attraction and those neurotransmitters getting released, women being pretty, being attractive is enough for that kind of feeling in male brains.
Have you been to
react.
Have you been to America? We're fat here. They're not pretty.
So
it's like the average female is like 180, like 5'5".
So actually, on the most recent dating coach panel, there was one dating coach on there who said because he goes to a bunch of other countries, he probably hasn't had sex with an American woman for about 6 or 8 years. And then Michael Sartain said, "Good, you're absolved." It was just the funniest thing ever. Everyone was so happy about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard that. So what do you guys think of the advice? Just be yourself.
Okay, so here it comes again. I mean, being yourself means that you're going up to a woman and you don't know what to talk about. That is being yourself in today's context. You just got to stay there, look at her, and just rambling on. Just because she's beautiful, you're also going to be nervous. So being yourself in that state is not very helpful. So being yourself is actually more about learning how to communicate in the way that you want to communicate. Not until then can you be yourself. And I used to say that if you really want to be good with women, you have to be much more yourself than you've ever been before. And you have to be authentic. And in order to be authentic, you need to inject curiosity in your mindset. So instead of focusing about you, about what you are doing, how cool you are, and what you want in life, you have to shift it over and make it about her instead. To be really curious about what is going on in her life, in depth, that goes beyond just the beauty that we see. Not until then do you have the right mindset to alter the behavior that can support that mindset. And now we're going into, real interpersonal communication skills that I believe guys need to learn in order to be themselves more than ever before. To be authentic is nothing that you really get born with. You really have to learn to be yourself. I mean, most of my clients, they are not someone who want to go with polygamy or something. They just want to find a girlfriend and be with an attractive girlfriend, and they're happy. But the truth is, it's like they just don't know how to be themselves, how to be authentic. So it's very, very important here to really look at what is actually the goal with the woman holistically. If you look at the beautiful woman and you get all this feeling that you really desire this woman, you need to shift your mindset to know more about her than just the look. That is the trick, to actually go away from the spell of she's being beautiful and actually learn something. It's a conscious act that you have to take in order to take a step back and really be able to communicate for real. Does it make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I like to say, especially recently, find your own uniqueness. There is some truth in just be yourself, but it's just free words, so it's extremely vague. If you're telling some potato head with no personality to just be himself, he's not going to be very exciting. So if we were to replace one of those words, maybe we could say something along the lines of just create yourself, just build yourself, become a better self that you currently are. Because if I stayed the same as I was 10 years ago, I wouldn't have my own YouTube channel. I wouldn't have my own best-selling book. I wouldn't have this or that. I would be a completely different person. I never would have done stand-up comedy. That never would have got me here or there or any other place. Improving yourself is such a key thing. People talk a lot about authenticity, which is definitely necessary, but having your own uniqueness is something I have pretty much been forced to live, having a weird name myself. And finding my own uniqueness is a way that I was able to stand out. It could even be little things, like some people might be able to relate to having pretty cool rings on their fingers, maybe, or some crazy fashion style that they have. Some people take it overboard. Some people are subtle about it. Finding your own uniqueness is a great way to go about it, but you can't expect to be a sucker for all your life and expect things to happen. Improving your communication. A lot of people recommend like going to the gym. I'm a lazy fuck, so it doesn't really matter to me. So some people may also be, especially any Americans watching, you will especially relate to this, but you don't have to go to the gym. If you want to, that's another way you can go. Personally, I don't anymore, but finding your own uniqueness is one of the key ideas I'm currently thinking about in terms of that.
And do you guys think it's harder now or before social media?
I think it's actually harder, but not for someone who can communicate. Then it might even be easier.
Mhm.
So people that I've taught communication skills, normal social skills can make it easier today, I think, than it was before. But if you don't know how to communicate with women, and also you don't know how to approach women, something we used to call cold approaches. If you don't go and approach women and start a conversation, it will be hard. But if we come from the perspective that you're actually doing something and you have conversational skills, I haven't seen anything that is harder today than back in the days or something like that. I've seen a very good success rate with guys just being able to go to the woman, start talking, having a normal conversation, and score, getting her number, and then later on going on a date. I haven't seen anything that actually sticks out. Mm-hmm. I've heard people saying that, I used a certain dating method and I had to approach several hundred women to score one date. I have never experienced anything like that. Most of people that can actually go and interact with women, and those women being available, meaning not married, not having a boyfriend and so on, have been very open to go for a date and so on. So I've seen guys going up to like 5, 6, 7 girls maybe, and then actually get one date and then can make something happen. So I cannot say that would be hard in that sense. Mm-hmm. So no, I don't believe that. I just believe that people lack communication skills today. And I also want to be very clear on one thing. I know that a lot of people say that just be yourself as something moral, like something morally thing that guys should think about. But I'm not saying that. If we're going to look at it objectively, in order to be able to talk with women in the depth that actually trigger attraction, trigger the brain chemistry to make them feel attracted for you, you have to be more yourself. than ever before. You have to be authentic. You have to be able to take conversation into depth where it matters. You see, the scientific papers are very clear. It doesn't say that you're going to flash off with a lot of things and telling a lot of funny stories or telling a lot of interesting stories to captivate the woman to just fall in love with you. That is not what the scientific papers are saying. They are saying that in order to really trigger the attraction in women, the first step is to make them talk about what they think about things with the guy being a true listener. And that is what we need to apply to the dating field. And we have to be ourselves more than before, because we have to listen to what she says and we have to be able to listen.
So for a cold approach, what are the general topics you tell guys to use?
So for my approach is you open up with intent. It could go like, excuse me, I know this is spontaneous, but I saw you. I think you look really nice. I just had to come and say hi. I'm Michael. What is your name? And after that point, straight into a normal conversation. Mm-hmm. Straight into a normal conversation. Rather than trying to come up with a lot of script-based routines or gambits. That is not what I believe in at all. I believe in going authentically into a normal conversation and then listen to what she says and then take what she say into depth. Not only finding out what she is doing and what she is liking, but the underlying reason why she's liking it, the underlying reason why she did what she did. Mm-hmm. And with the guy being a real listener. That is when we come into that depth that actually makes an impact. So that is what I do.
Can you give me an example? Like what listening on a deeper level would mean to a guy? Like the why behind what she does, like that you would get in a first conversation, that's what I'm thinking.
I guess. So where are you at the moment, Pearl?
I'm in Chicago.
Chicago, okay. So if I ask you this question, what do you think about Chicago?
I like the summer, hate the winter.
You like summer, hate the winter. You know what? For example, let's say that I've been in Chicago and I would say like, you know what? I like Chicago, but only on the summertime because I don't like winter in general. Mm-hmm. But I'm curious, when you say you like the winter and summertime, start with summertime. When you say I like summertime, what do you actually mean?
Well, the summers in Chicago are hot, but they're not stupid hot like in the South. So it's just a nice atmosphere. There's like Cubs games and I don't know. It's just nice because you can go outside and it's not like crazy hot and it's just like nice atmosphere.
Okay, so what you're telling me now is that the reason why you like...
I see.
Yeah, the reason why you like Chicago on the summertime is simply it's a perfect temperature.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And you like to go out for walks and so on. Mm-hmm. But tell me, what is your favorite thing to do on a perfect summer day that is not too hot?
If I'm doing something fun, I like... I think Wrigley is really fun in the summer, like Wrigleyville. So you can go to like a Cubs game and there's like outdoor bars. It's really fun.
Okay. So that is actually the main reason why you like Chicago that much.
Yeah, Wrigley. I love Wrigley.
Right. I get you.
I don't like baseball though. I just like the atmosphere. I don't really care about the game.
Okay, I get it. The atmosphere is more about the vibe with people being happy, basically. Yeah. So happy gives you energy, I guess.
Yeah. I see what you mean. Because it's like you're asking like why. I get it.
And it doesn't feel like an interrogation because I'm curious about what you actually think.
Yeah.
So it went from, what do you think about Chicago? Because it might sound, from an objective point of view, it might sound like a normal conversation. But in order to be able to do what I just did there, mm-hmm. you need to form a habit of hearing the words that you are saying. Once you have the habit of taking the words, to listen to the words that you are saying, I can actually take that and really finding out what is your relationship to those topics. I mean, if you say, I like the summertime in Chicago, I don't know what that means. I'm seeking deeper meaning, and I also relate myself into that meaning. Mm-hmm. And that is the area where women and people in general really, really feel good. You have to take it into depth because suddenly, wow, we are now talking about things that actually matters in my life. And according to all the scientific studies that we have seen, this is what women actually like to talk about. But they don't do it by themselves. You have to have someone who can take that into that depth.
And so when you hear examples of men approaching like 100, 200, 300 women and having no luck, in your experience, is it that they have improper communication skills, like they didn't learn that? Or is it, you think it's more of that than like a looks thing?
I think that people that actually have short-term success with pickup artist, game, and so on methods are people that might be able to do a certain limited routine-based gimmick naturally. You see, naturally. So women cannot really see that they are doing something. But if you're not really schooled in that, most women, and specifically those women that have a lot of male attention around, they will see that a mile away, that this guy is just weird. And also, when they open up with something, many times women are actually not following a certain route. So they might ask something, or they might want to know something about the guy in a way that he can't handle because he was in this routine scripted game. And what happens then is like, sayonara, I'm not interested, and they go. So I think being not authentic to hurt a lot of guys in their approaches. But if I'm going to ask you now, like I did, by the way, are you from here? Yes, I'm from Chicago. Okay, I'm just curious. What do you think about Chicago? And then we go into this normal conversation. There is no gimmicks here.
Yeah.
It's just real. It's just being real. And I guess that even if you know that we just made that kind of role play, it felt great. Telling to me what you think about Chicago, why summertime is that good, that the atmosphere was actually the thing, not the baseball, but the atmosphere with happy people, everything surrounded. That makes you feel good telling me about it. With me being genuinely curious. That's also one thing. I'm genuinely curious about your life and relationship to things. That's extremely powerful. But no one can do it unless you're trained to do it.
Right.
So I have my main advisor, I would say. His name is Alexander Lyon, professor at University of New York. And we've been speaking a lot about this. And when we try to predict of how many people in general know how to communicate in a proper way, interpersonally, we're talking about one person in 50 maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. No, maybe not even that. So if we have one person in 50 men that is somewhat good in interpersonal communication, then we have 49 men that don't know how to trigger real attraction in women. Then how does it look? Well, women just have it. They're looking pretty. They are attractive already. All the neurotransmitters in the brain of men is just there. But then the opposite. Women might be interested in certain men, but they never get really triggered attractively. And then we have this huge imbalance. And if we're going to look at human behaviors based on not feeling so attracted to someone, that is when you are right, Pearl. That is when women start having bad behaviors towards the men. And that is a huge problem today.
Do you have anything you want to add?
I don't know, covered it very nicely, but so kind of something brought up earlier about how people feel about things getting harder. I would say where social media is concerned, I had some brief conversations with Dr. Mark Rosenfeld, or no, Michael Rosenfeld, who's a professor at Stanford University. He famously put together a set of studies on how couples meet in the USA. And there's an entire graph that is produced somewhere from 1940s or 1960s up to now. And it has been, this study has been done several times to keep it updated. And you'll see that since 1995, online dating started to take off. And then especially from around 2012, 2013, it started to really take a lot of heavy hitting against all the other ways people were meeting, like through family, through friends, church to a lesser extent, through education, workplace, for example. And one of the popular ones, aside from family and friends, normally would have been bars/restaurants. And that has kind of maintained. But online dating is now, well, the internet is now responsible for more than 50% of how couples are meeting since the last few years. And I'm talking about 2020, 2021, approximately, only in the last few years. And it's just completely crazy how, we knew the internet was going to take over even 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But is dating going to get harder? It's going to get harder for you if you're not doing a damn thing about it. But at the same time, if you are able to perform very well in social media, like I had a trash Instagram for years, and then only pretty recently I started getting a lot of followers. Once it's there, it's already done. The point is that if you can get the work done to make your profile look good, not just Tinder necessarily, but Instagram, let's say, I am expecting to be alive for the next 20,000 days, maybe. The average human lifespan is 28,000 days approximately. So, why don't I do something now that will provide me some, as you can say, passive income, but in terms of followers? This is why we have YouTube channels. This is why we have Instagram. I made it so that with what I designed with Game Global, I get followers on Facebook, and I don't lose followers on Facebook necessarily. Like you can easily lose followers on Instagram, but it's not easy to lose followers on or subscribers on YouTube, for example. But it's there for the rest of your life as long as you keep that account under your control. And having that, putting the work in, the job is pretty much done. All you got to do is maintain it, maybe. But if you do the complete opposite and don't participate, that can also be a strength. So, similar to what Michael was saying, if everyone's occupied with Tinder and you are the one guy doing cold approach and actually socializing with people, that is a strength because all the people too fixated on Tinder are not necessarily going to have those social skills. So there are advantages to both sides. And my term for this is some people say text game, but I say message game because texting is an action, but messaging is a marketing strategy. If you have a marketing strategy for your social media, and I don't mean it has to be some fucking serious marketing strategy as if you're running a business, but you are marketing yourself everywhere you go. Like some people wear Nike clothes. They're a billboard for Nike, basically. Be a billboard for yourself. Like right now, this is a little hypocritical, but this is a passion of mine. I love Miami Vice. I'm wearing a Miami Vice shirt. I'm a billboard for Miami Vice today. However, that's one of my passions, but kind of irrelevant. To putting in the work and building your internet empire, your internet presence is a great thing. Because if you don't have an internet presence, you effectively don't exist in the virtual world. If you're present in both the virtual world and the physical world, that is the greatest thing you can do in terms of your dating power. If you like to focus on one and not the other, then that's okay, but you may be missing out on the other.
Do you think there is a huge unbalance in attraction level between men and women?
Yes, yes. As we spoke earlier, men just don't know how to trigger real attraction in terms of the neuro science in our brain. In women, men just don't know how to do that, while women just have it naturally by looking good. And that's a huge problem. I mean, how can it be balanced when professors all over the world and all communication experts and neuroscientists, people that they are doctors and professors in neuroscience, for example, when they see that, men can trigger women neuroscientifically, how does it look? Is no way they're going to be balanced. So I think that many marriages, many relationships, as you said, 70 to 80% of marriages is women taking the initiative to break off. It might be the same thing with relationship, as you also mentioned in one of your clips before. When we're looking in that part, maybe it is that men comes in and feel full attraction for the woman because she's pretty, she's good looking, and she have a certain interest of him and a certain amount of attraction, but just a certain amount. And with the interaction they had together, it's not really there. It's not really sticky. So what happens then? Well, she felt a lot less attracted to the man than the opposite. And it's not because he'd only make $80,000 a year and another guy make 150. No, it's because he couldn't trigger the neurotransmitters that was linked to attraction. And here's the important part. You probably heard about the hormone and the neurotransmitter oxytocin. That is sort of the love hormone we used to speak about in the nice neuroscientific world. So oxytocin is a brain molecule, let's say molecule, a neurotransmitter that makes you feel love. So if you're a mother and you have a daughter, your oxytocin level is pretty high connected with that daughter because you're the mother, right? So you feel strong love towards your daughter. When it comes to romantic situation, that oxytocin, in order for it to be really strong, so you can feel strong feelings for a man, the attraction has to be there in the beginning, the initial attraction. Because if there is very little attraction, and specifically sexual attraction, there won't be any strong love in the end. And you know that by yourself. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
We have to have that kind of spark, attraction spark in the beginning, enabled to evolve with the relationship. But if men can communicate in the way that gives the balance between the attraction neuroscientifically with men and women, between men and women, how can relationship be good then?
Yeah,
it's
so
very hard to find that.
You're saying if they don't learn the language basically to trigger it, then you'll never get there.
Basically, yes.
Yeah. You know,
never get there.
I had a woman on my show recently, and we were talking about how women will date men with no jobs, and the men with jobs are they're baffled at how these men with no jobs can get these women, but it's because the men with no jobs have all this time, so they learn the language of women, and they just learn to be charming. And then the men, the men that haven't learned the language and it's not black and white, obviously, but you guys get my point. They're like baffled. They're like, what are they doing? But the guys that get it, like they understand exactly what's going on. It's like they're charming.
Yeah. So basically, in attraction, it's much more how women feels being with that man than what she sees in him before she's being with him, if you get my point. The attraction is building up with time during interactions with that particular man. It's so many times, and you also, and all other women, there are so many women out there that in the beginning didn't like her boyfriend that much, but that particular boyfriend became her type in the end. So she learned. So those men, they have the language, and those men that have, even though they haven't been schooled, they have a certain element of it. So they could actually reach to a pretty high attractiveness level in those women. And many of those women said that, oh, he was not in my range before. No way. But once I start learning about him, I get more and more attracted, and he became my type. I've seen that so many times. So I'm a strong believer of really being able to trigger the attraction switches in women in the right way. I mean, I'm a scientist here in that sense. If the key was to jump on one leg, then I would say jump on one leg and she would be attracted to you. But that is not the case. Right. I'm looking at what is it that actually attracts women. This is it. This is what actually attracts women. And it's not something new, actually. It is relationship building communication, and that is called interpersonal communication. It's a difference between interpersonal communication, which involves a lot of relationship building and emotional connection, compared with normal communication skills, which is more focused on transaction of information in the right way. So we have to differ those two communication styles. So yeah, and we have also have another aspect that I feel is super important in order to learn that language. I love when you said the language, is that once you start to learn about listening skills, how to listen to women, and from that create conversations that are interesting, what we are doing now is that we are enhancing our cognitive function in our brain. Because it's a lot of cognitive engagement when we're having a social conversation with people. When we're having conversation with people, they can go either way. The brain have to learn how to adapt through something we call experience-dependent plasticity. It's like a neuroscience term. So we're actually creating new neural pathways to handle complex situations. And have a conversation with many different people is a complex situation. So once you get into the area of like, you know what? I'm going to make a conscious decision to make this conversation about her. And I'm going to listen very carefully. And I'm going to be curious about the things that she's saying, because I want to know the underlying reason of why she's thinking a certain thing or why she's doing a certain thing. Then you train your brain to handle complex ideas and situations. That is very different from something I used to call habituation. We will get into that later. But in order to learn conversational skills, you become a better man. You become a better person. You evolve as a human intellectually. So your emotional intelligence becomes really strong. If you look at the dating coaches today, many of them, or the pickup artist community, what they are learning is certain routine, scripted material. Jordan Peterson used to call it instrumental language, which means that you're learning a certain way of attracting women that is very limited. So you become really good at that limited thing. So you become a habit. But the problem with just becoming a habit is that the neural pathways doesn't form for you to handle complex situations. So you just become good at one routine. Yeah, like one specific story or one specific jokes. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't give you the cognitive flexibility to be good with people. So being good with women is actually just a part of social skills.
Yeah.
Emotional intelligence and social skills. And social skills, we know, have to be trained all the time to be better and better and better at it. Does it make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense. Do you have anything you want to add?
I know that's Michael's field, so he'll take that one.
Okay.
There is another thing.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Okay, so there is another thing I want to mention as well. That is a psychological principle that is extremely strong, and that is reciprocity in attraction. It's a very, very strong concept. So when we look at reciprocity, and we look at men, for example, when a woman just smiles to a man that is attractive, that very basic level of showing interest towards him, a very basic level, may spark the attraction like crazy in a man, like crazy. But so that man is like, oh, she likes me, I'm all in. But in order to replicate that idea, to reciprocate, it's not enough for him to smile back and that's it. You see? So women are much more complex than that. So, because there is a saying and saying goes like this: we tend to like people that like us, and we tend to love people that love us. We want to reciprocate that back to balance our brain, basically. So when someone likes us, we want to like them back. But the thing is that when a woman smiles to a man, it's enough for the man to get into that level to feel like, oh, she likes me. But the other way around requires a lot more. So while men are having a basic level, need a basic level of interest from women, women need a very complex level for men to feel the same way. Like, oh, he likes me. Not only sexually, but he likes me. Now we're going into the area of what I used to call the empathy. We have to want to learn things about her so she can understand that we want to understand her, for her to feel like, that guy likes me, and therefore I like him back. You see, but men get that wrong. They think that when a woman smile to a man, we just smile back and maybe flex our muscles, and that's it. We created a balance.
Yeah.
No. It doesn't really work that way. So if we go into the field of psychology now, it's like There's another guy named Dr. John Howard, is one of the leading psychotherapists out there. He was saying that what women need in the beginning is a feeling of safety and trust. And before we have obtained a certain amount of safety and trust, nothing else will actually sink in. So what is safety and trust in women? Well, if we go back 10,000 years ago, it might have been, or maybe 100,000 years ago, it might be a caveman protecting you from the predators in the cave. Or you killing the bear and bringing the meat into the cave as well. But our brain is very complex. We evolve with time. And we used to call it structural plasticity, or our prefrontal cortex in our brain adapting to new environments. So if you're going to look at what safety and trust is in the modern world, it's actually more about emotional safety and emotional trust, basically. It's not about we will give you money or something. It's more about emotional safety and emotional trust. And what is linked to emotional safety and trust is actually understanding. We tend to feel safe with people that understands us. We trust people that understands us. And now we're going into the area of empathy. Empathy is extremely important for men to be able to utilize.
What do you mean by empathy?
So when we're talking about empathy, so what is empathy? Maybe many people doesn't know what empathy is. Empathy is actually based on understanding. People get it wrong. People get it connected with compassion or sympathy. You see?
Yeah.
Empathy has nothing to do with those parts, actually. It's more about just understanding. So if I could understand your situation based on being on your shoes,
right,
then I have a certain amount of real understanding about you. And if I can communicate that I understand you in that way, it's extremely powerful. It doesn't mean that I agree with you. It doesn't mean that I feel sorry for you. I just understand you being in your shoes. I understand you. So that part is very, very important. And people get it wrong. People think that you have to agree with women all the time. You don't have to agree with them, but you have to understand them.
Right.
And now we're going into depth again. In order to be able to understand women, we have to go into depth in conversation. So we're getting back into the same loop here.
Yeah.
We have to understand the underlying reason for things. Like I did with you when we're talking about like why you like Chicago exactly.
Yeah.
Now I know it's not actually baseball, which many people think. It's actually the atmosphere around baseball that matters for you.
Yeah.
Understand. So that's basically what I mean. Psychologists and psychotherapists and all other people that knows communication all over the world knows that empathy in communication is a superpower, without any doubt. They classify it as a superpower. So.
Yeah, and I think that skill transfers to people that are very likable. You know, they can understand how other people feel, like people that are naturally charismatic. I can totally see that. Yeah,
they're actually coming from the theory of likability.
Yeah.
So it's basically the same area. But many people think that, but that likability and those communication concepts, is that applied dating? Well, they're wrong. It's actually referred to dating more than they think. It's like more than general communication here. So I'm really confused why not so many people actually came up with these proven things in the society. Really. And I feel really hurt to see so many guys out there struggling with women, really. And they are clueless. People think that if you are successful up here, you have everything. But I've seen so many guys having all those things and they have nothing.
They
really have nothing.
They'll get like, it'll be guys that will, it actually amazes me, Ben, that can run multi-million-dollar corporations, or they'll be so good in every other area of their life, but they have women running circles around them in their personal life, or they can't tell their wife no. Like, it actually amazes me. There'll be guys that have like they order around people at work. And you're like, how are you afraid of your wife? Like, of all people, you know what I mean?
So there's another factor that you mentioned there, actually, is like those rich guys that or successful guys that seems to have a lot of women running around chasing them. I hope many women don't take it wrong. But those women, what I've seen, tend to be women that doesn't belong to the area of having a lot of male attention either. They put a lot of makeup and they're running around with those men, chasing those men.
Yeah.
But when it comes to women that have a lot of male attention, what I've seen is that they don't give a damn as a rule. I mean, there are women, there are men in all stages in life chasing them. And they've done that since they were 13 years old. They don't give a damn if you're even a CEO in a big company or something like that. They just want to be with someone they feel good with.
Yeah.
But then we have the gold diggers area, and there was another study that actually looked into the gold diggers mentality and so on, and they've seen that those women doesn't belong to the area of being very popular in school, being very popular with men. It's like a couple of steps downwards often, and then they act and behave differently. If that makes sense for you as well. So if we're talking about women, they have male attention, and who are they? Well, pretty women. I mean, they have men all over their life, and their skill of seeing who is real and who is not real is unbelievable. Their neuroplasticity evolving with time is just unbelievable good. So they know directly who is the real guy here, and who is just the guy who is just playing around or using some weird stuff, routine games and so on, like gimmicks.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to get away from. And I think that you can spot those guys as well. If someone comes up to you and trying to make some kind of game, you will feel like something is odd with him.
Yeah, I always said the biggest challenge I had dating after I got famous was like some men would turn into fans, and it just was a very weird dynamic for me on a date. Do you know what I mean? I was just like, oh, okay. Like I'm taken
So anyway,
now.
can I get your autograph? That kind of thing.
I'm taken now, but like before I was like, I did not like that because it was just weird. I'm like, what are you like how am I like could you talk to me normal? It's funny the same thing you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, absolutely. So there's a movie. I can't remember. Maybe it's just called Diana, but it's the movie about Princess Diana from like 10 years ago or something. She fell in love with like some South Asian doctor or something. I remember this is like such a girly movie. I only watched it because I had a girlfriend at the time who made me fucking watch it. But I noticed even way back then, the doctor, because it's based on the true story of Princess Diana, of course, the doctor was pretty much the only person who treated her like a normal person. She was the princess, and she was maybe like supposed to be Queen of England or something. Treating famous people as completely normal is a philosophy that I have been following since forever. I don't even know why. I'm just not impressed by famous people. I've been around them, but I'm not like some. That's not my life originally. I didn't grow up that way, but just to treat someone as normal. A lot of guys are treating women, even not even the most attractive women, but somewhat above average women. They're treating them like celebrities, and that's where it can become a bit disturbing. So for you having a YouTube presence, that must go to some kind of fucking crazy extent.
Yeah, well, it was just I guess at the time they would come in with these goggles like I could do no wrong, and I just felt like it was too much for me to live up to, you know, because I'm like I can't I'm like a person, you know, like I'm a normal woman, you know.
Exactly.
That's kind of the weird thing with fame is sometimes people come and they interact with you like yeah, like you can do no, and this is men and women, but if they're fans, it's just a weird like dynamic to have at times.
Yeah, 100%. Like I just randomly met a few famous people. So for example, I met someone through my workplace actually, who's a Hollywood actor and a well-known comedian. He came over to my house and he invited me to a show. I treated him normal, but we met through work circumstances, so that
Yeah.
was kind of something related to what I was doing. But I also ended up meeting Dan Bilzerian. If I treated him like another fucking like I was a fucking huge fucking fan, then I'll just look like everyone else. Just like I said
Yeah.
before, stand out, find your own uniqueness. And that uniqueness in a celebrity context is treat that person like they're fucking normal.
Yeah.
Separate yourself from them.
Did we do how can men become more attractive in a way that makes the level of attraction equal? Did we do that one?
Yeah, I mean, once again, we go into the area of learning conversational skills, because without that, we cannot trigger neurotransmitters in women's brain. And I also think that men actually have to learn relationship building material that has been proven for so long back in the days. There are shortcuts, there are courses you can take, but it's actually the interpersonal communication that men have to learn. As you said, Pearl, they have to learn the language.
Yeah.
Because it's the language that is like the missing link. And when we see that, specifically in the manosphere and red pill that you're very familiar with, when you look at those fields and you can see how women behave towards men, we objectively can feel a little bit like bad behavior and so on. But when I ask guys, how do you behave towards that girl that is not attractive? You will see similar things. So that is just a human behavior of how we behave towards people that we don't find really attractive. But that person might go and find us very attractive, and we just see that as annoying. And I think that is a huge part of all those problems that you have been talking about before. I really believe so.
Yeah. Well, and there's less, I think there's less consequences for women to be bad people than men. You know, like if a guy's a dick to someone, like that woman can go ruin his reputation around there, where like men just don't really do that as much. Like if you're kind of a dick to a guy, he just lives with it because he's, you know.
Yeah. I mean, probably I don't have any information about that, but I get your point. It might be like that. Yes, like they are more destructive in that sense for the man if they don't like the man. But you probably have seen women that are really attracted to their man. How do they behave then? Amazingly, isn't it?
Oh, sometimes a little crazy, but yeah. Like sometimes very jealous if they're really attractive to him. But yeah, I would say much better, of course.
Yeah, I mean, they basically do everything for him.
Yeah.
A lot of things. And I've seen many women that are labeled as bad woman. And she got attracted to some guy, and she became like the best woman in the world.
You know what I think of? I think of Amber Heard and Elon Musk. He's like, what's wrong with Amber Heard? It's like the selfie of them in the costume, you know, and she's wearing like the anime costume.
Yeah. No, I get you.
He's like, what's the problem? I don't get it.
Yeah. And then I get that. Yeah, but you get the point. Yeah. There was a good example, but you get the point.
He will get it when she shits in his bed. He will get it.
Okay. Dating methods, interpersonal communication versus PUA and manosphere red pill skill set to evolve socially and romantically effective communication, empathy in conversations.
Yeah, a lot of things that we spoke about here. So basically, again, if we know what attracts women, we should actually lean towards doing that to attract women. And I think that it's actually, counterproductive and constructive if you go with other areas that actually doesn't attract women. It's just like another gimmick and so on. So there are two factors here. It's like learning how to have empathetic conversation with women, with people in general. It's also giving your brain the power of evolve. You see, you'll be able to have a better cognitive function because of your cognitive engagement with people and so on. So your brains get smarter, have stronger emotional intelligence. Everything gets up. If you don't learn that, you're learning other things, such as routines and gimmicks and so on. You will be good at that particular thing, but your brain will not evolve. You just create a habit on one thing, and that's it. And that doesn't benefit anyone. It doesn't benefit any guys that try to learn that one thing. and then maybe learn another thing, because if that routine is finished, I have to have another routine to pull out from the pocket, and then another routine, and then you have a guy that knows 20 routines, and that is what he's based on, 20 routines, but his neural flexibility is zero. Cognitive flexibility doesn't increase, so he cannot handle complex ideas of having a social interaction with people.
It's almost like memorizing multiplication tables versus learning like how to multiply, almost, or like memorizing information versus understanding the concept.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's basically the same thing. One is triggering new neural pathways for your brain to grow cognitively, cognitive function. The other one is just a memorization. That's it. So you create the memory room and things become automatic because you remember exactly that part. But if there will be a similar part that is not that part, then you cannot even solve it.
Right.
So that's very interesting concept in that sense. There are a couple of principles that I've seen change guys' lives completely.
Okay.
And that is, for example, like if they apply the mindset of being curious and to have that saying in the brain. And the saying is, if you want to be interesting, be interested rather than trying to be interesting. If they learn that concept, most of the interaction with women will vastly improve, mega improve. I've seen people change their life just based on that line. Make it about her and be curious about that. Many of my clients and many guys like, really? Should I make it about her? You meaning, should I ask her a question? You mean? Yes. I mean, learn about her life, learn about her underlying reason of doing things. And of course, if you are the only one that asks questions, it will eventually sound like an interrogation. So you have to be part of that conversation by relaying back to yourself. Like, for example, like when you said you were in Chicago, you lived in Chicago, and you like the summertime and the wintertime, let's say that. Then we just relay back to you and say, you know what, I like Chicago too on summertime. It's really nice here. But I'm curious, when you are saying,
right,
I like summertime in Chicago, what do you mean? Can you help me to understand that better? I want to know. Now, suddenly, we are getting somewhere. Basically, you're getting somewhere now. And in the beginning, it is hard to learn in the beginning. But with consistent practice, you will have a habit of listening to what you're saying, and then the cognitive flexibility comes in. And you know what? I want to understand what you mean there. I'm not satisfied with I like summertime and wintertime, and that's it. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that the conversation we want to have? You know what? You don't get away with me. When you saying something, I want to know more. I don't know which one you talk with. Maybe a lot of other guys. Okay, that's cool, and then he start talking about himself.
Yeah.
But I've applied the mindset of making it about you. I'm interested in you. So I don't want to say a lot of interesting things. I'm interested in you. So based on that, I want to know what you mean with summertime in Chicago. What does that mean exactly? Tell me. And now we're getting into depth. And that is what actually creates influence and impact emotionally. So be interested rather than trying to be interesting.
Right. Do you have anything you want to add?
Just a minor point, I guess. Like I suppose, myself included, perhaps, if you said something like you didn't like winter in Chicago, I would say something along the lines of, what is wrong with you? I love winter. We can do all these crazy things in the winter and stuff like that. But then that, in what Michael was saying, that becomes a kind of about me. I'm applying my personal preferences against yours. So that's kind of one thing that I'm seeing from what Michael says.
But I have to add something there. It was great as a relay. If she said, "Oh, I like wintertime," or if you said that you didn't like wintertime, let's say you said, "I like wintertime," then you come and say, "Oh, I love wintertime. It's amazing." Blah 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 blah. You keep it short and concise, just to open up what we used to call a dynamic conversation or a collaborative conversation, and then you roll the ball back to her and let her tell you what she think about or what you mean with "I like the wintertime in Chicago." You see what I mean? So not saying anything about you at all is also wrong, because you don't create a collaborative communication flow then. So we still have to have some conversation between us two, but it should be much more about her than yourself. So you always going to keep yourself pretty short and concise, specifically in the beginning of a relationship, in a date, and so on. Keep it short and concise. So that was still good. It was still good.
Yeah.
If you roll back the ball to her. I used to say that.
And I would have said, what are you, a psychopath?
Yeah. No, but you know, yeah, it can sound psychopathic, like, oh, are you really that interested? No, but the spotlight should be on her, really, definitely. So, and that is a principle that everyone who listens to this podcast, if you're a doctor in communication, psychology, psychotherapist, and so on, you know this. Don't know. This is a common knowledge, basically, that if you want to be interesting, make it about them and talk about them. A good conversationalist and a great influencer, if you're going to stand back and listen to that person, you will see that he will not talk that much, but if he talks, it sounds like this. He and her is talking about her. You see? Yeah. That is how it sounds like. That is a great conversationalist.
Yeah.
Not a guy that just rambling about himself and what he think about things and what he want to achieve in life and so on. Not much about that. He can say it in the context of finding out about her in order to have some kind of dynamic conversation. But you know, most guys just make it about them because that's the only thing they can talk about.
Yeah.
And sometimes being nervous in the same time, and then you know, it doesn't impress anyone. So,
how do you apply academic theories into dating?
So what I've done basically is to take the best academic theory in communication, psychology, and behaviorism and adapt that into the field of dating. So we have been talking about neuroplasticity. We are talking about experience-dependent plasticity, which is like how the brain works neuroscientifically. We're talking about neurotransmitters and so on. It sounds complicated, and you don't have to know that stuff. But I like to talk about those stuff because people that want to learn real skills, they want to know that it's something based on it. So that's why I give them an explanation of why things are as they are. But when it comes to learning it, it's actually not that complex. It's not that advanced. It's more of a practical exercise than an intellectual exercise. So it's all about practicing being a good listener and being curious, practicing real methods and principles based on real things. So I think that is very, very important, because the first part can be good as an introduction and so on. It's based on science. That might be enough. Some people are more curious about the real reason, because you don't want to learn something if you don't know it's backed of something. But once they know it is actually backed on something, then the motivation and you being able to keep a consistency becomes stronger because you know it's based on something. Mm-hmm. Think about learning something that you don't know if it's actually backed about something. That would be a waste of time and energy, wouldn't it? So I think we shouldn't. I mean, I would not say that all areas it should be completely based on academics, but in this area it has been really researched and proven. Mm-hmm. So in this sense, it's like when it comes to relationship building and attraction and so on, it's they've been studying for so many years, 1950s till now. We're talking about almost 80 years basically, and it is actually valid stuff, and it's also easy to apply in the real world. Anyone that listen to this one, just try to make a decision in your own brain to, you know what, I'm going to let the other person talk. And you're just going to be quiet and listen to that person. You will see immediately how much more popular you become. Just like that. It's so easy to check out and try out to see the feeling of the other person. You will see immediately that you will have a great, conversation with them because you're making it about them. It's very easy to check in that sense as well.
Do you have anything to add?
Nope, nothing to add. Good stuff so far.
Yeah, this is great. So the last question is your final thoughts and overall solutions for men, as well as advice for men struggling and how to get rid of limited beliefs of female behavior.
So the limiting beliefs of female behavior is a big thing. And I get the point where a lot of men out there is basically start hating women because they're behaving badly. I mean, from a logical perspective, if you like a girl or a woman, let's say woman, and then you're doing a lot of things for her, but it's not linked to attraction. You mean you buying her? Let's say this is one attractive woman at work, for example. You're buying her her favorite lunch every day. You're trying to drive her home safely every day. You're trying to ask her how she feels, how her day was, if she had a good night's sleep, and so on. All superficial. And then she doesn't give you anything back. She don't reciprocate at all. What kind of feeling do we have about her? Well, she's arrogant. She's actually quite rude. She doesn't give us anything back. And it's easy to go into the area of she is a bad person. And she's not the only one, because all the other women I did the same thing for, they didn't give anything back. So everyone is bad. And now we're going into the area of like men goes their own way, or the black pill community is like, I'm not good enough in general. And that make her bad because I'm a very kind person. But the truth is, the advice is for men today is to actually learn how to be good with women with communication skills.
Yeah.
I mean, if you find someone attractive, she triggers me maximally. I'm so attracted to her. And you go up to her. What happens? You're going to have a conversation. But do you really know how to talk with her? Do you really know how to?
Well, some guys, I think, what did you expect? Because I'm like, well, obviously, if she didn't do anything for you, she doesn't like you. Like, if you're doing all this stuff, like, what did you think?
Yeah, but it is like that. So Jordan Peterson said something like, if 100 women reject you, and you are standing there, whose fault is it? Whose fault is it? Is it the women's fault? Or is it your fault? If we can start, it maybe sound a little bit destructive, but when we start thinking about that way, maybe we can go into the more intellectual area and trying to find out, why don't I actually attract women? And how can I do that? Mm-hmm. Oh, when you start thinking about that, now you're getting somewhere. Instead of, I am a perfect man, or my behavior is perfect, because if a woman buys me my favorite kebab, I like her, and she should like if I buying her favorite salad. But it doesn't work that way. So I think it's more about the men learning how to find out what are they lacking at, basically. And as we already spoke about, is communication skills. Every time you're going to go and try to make something happen with a woman, it will be an interaction in between. It will always be an interaction in between.
Yeah.
If we're going to talk about the vast majority of women, if you as a guy go up and ask women to sleep with you, yeah, it might be 1 in 1,000 that will say yes, but like I'm not calculating that as a, yeah, that is like a huge, like someone who have like mental sex disorder. But except for that, if we're going to go with the rule itself, it doesn't want to work. So,
right.
So I'm curious, what do you think, Pearl, about all this?
No, I think I've always said that men underestimate, I call it charming, but like underestimate how important being charming is. So no, I think this is good stuff. I think I don't personally like coach men and pick up, so I can't really talk too much about how to, date and seduce women. That's not really my thing. But I think as a woman,
you should get into it. That would be fun.
I think you have to like do that to be qualified at it, but no, I think it makes sense. I think I was just talking with a woman the other day, like she was on my show, and we were talking about how much women value charming men. And it's like, well, pick a guy that has less money, is less attractive, but is more charming. Like we totally do that. So
Yeah.
So
And
instead of the word charming, could we use like you use that in place of something like personality or game, for example? Is that kind of what you mean?
I don't know. Yeah. Game personality. Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
I think it's an effect of someone you feel good with
Yeah.
in an interaction. It's just like that. It's not like he came up with you and said one liner that was charming, and now you find him charming. This one
No.
have been developed during conversation, during interaction, and you feel like, wow, this guy is charming. Many times it comes from he being curious about you. So,
Yeah.
for example, like now this was scripted, but if I would say that, you know what, the way you see Chicago in the summertime, not the baseball itself, but the energy of the people in that kind of game that you really like. You know what? I find that really, really cool about you. I find that really is sort of attractive. If I would say that, you will probably find me charming because it's directly linked to what you think and who you are.
Yeah, and it shows you were
And and
listening. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And now you feel charmed. I mean, it is like that. And if I also give you compliments based on context, so I give you a compliment like the way you see Chicago uh, on summertime, but specifically the right way of temperature, and you really emphasize on those baseball games. You really emphasize on them, but you know, not talking about baseball. You're talking about the people and the energy. I mean, it makes me warm. It makes me getting goosebumps. I really like people that I like you, for example. I like you seeing Chicago in this way and seeing those environment being so cool. And I think that's cool too. That's what I like. I like those energy places. That is how charm gets created. You see,
Yeah.
it's like we're getting into the reciprocity in attraction. It's like when I liking you, you start liking me back. It's like it become like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I liked to would you say you use that in the dating app stuff that you use? Cuz I can't remember the one you used on my show, but
Oh,
I remember it was personal and it had either rollerblading in it or something.
the free things line where it said something along the lines of what are free things you would love to do for the first date, no matter how crazy.
I can't remember what I said, but it was like rollerblading, basket.
Rollerblading, sushi, basketball.
Oh,
I got a
okay.
weird memory. Don't blame me. I didn't fucking study this today. I got a very strange memory.
Yeah. And what was the response? I don't remember. I just remember thinking it was very clever the way you did it.
We had a few examples, but yeah, the first example was let's skip all the bullshit. How adventurous are you? And you said you like rollerblading for that one. Yeah, and simply put, it was very much like perfect. Let's do it. What's your phone number? Something along those lines. We
Yeah.
got the clip somewhere.
Yeah. But it's
My
kind of
system is very much based on. I was thinking about this as Michael was talking 2 minutes ago. Um, where Michael's system is more like, or at least the way I understand it, expressing interest, and then if she expresses interest back, then you have clues that she's interested back. Of course, my system, like if we take Chicago for example, I I wouldn't be bothered on in my system, like which finding out more about Chicago. My priority is to identify what is fun in Chicago. So my system is focuses on the fun. So a great example of this, similar to roll. Let's take rollerblading for example. A great example because the one I actually use is ice skating. It's much better than sitting at a restaurant face to face because there's a table in the way. You got to talk to each other and eat, and you got to wait for the waiter or waitress. It's a very static environment. But something like rollerblading or ice skating, you can hold hands, you can fall over on your ass and laugh about it. The fun is put first, and the conversation then becomes secondary. Plus, there's less pressure on having a conversation because when you're focused on having the fun rather than focused on, oh, what should I say next? What should we talk about? You're going to get too much into your head. My system is pretty much all about focusing on the fun, and then the conversation becomes secondary. That's not how I thought about it when I came up with it, but that's how I came to realize that kind of aspect to it. So that's my perspective on it. I'm simply focusing on the fun in order to give her a dating experience. And the reason for asking what your the free things you would love to do for a first date, that is your dating blueprint, your blueprint for a perfect first date. If I take you to a fucking coffee shop and you don't even like coffee, or
Right.
you would rather do basketball, then I am missing out on becoming the best date you ever had. So, plus, I wouldn't be able to stand out. I would be definitely able to stand out if I take you on the best date or one of the best dates you ever went on, simply because by extracting that information from you, I know what to do. So that's exactly how my system works.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
go ahead.
holding conversation is hard. It is hard. If you don't know how to do it, then you either learn it or you try to come up with activities instead. It's pretty obvious in that sense. However, I prefer to be able to have conversations, but it's not easy to have conversations if not schooled. It's just like that.
Yeah, especially with Gen Z because they're more online than ever. So many didn't even learn like basic social skills.
Business game taking over right there. But yeah, it first becomes harder. Like even a good few years ago, parents were noticing that kids were becoming less social. Like I got a 4-year-old daughter, and she's like so fixated on a Kindle. And maybe it wasn't such a good idea giving her one, but makes my parenting job easier, I suppose, in some sad way that kind of
Well,
doesn't bring about the real goodness, but keeps them entertained. But as long as it's not abused too much, I suppose.
well, you guys have it tough though because the kids are really, I mean, she's young, but like when they get older, they're really left out if they don't have the electronic stuff. Like I asked my youngest
So,
sister, and they all talk on Snapchat. Like that's how and she said you wouldn't get invited to anything if like that's just how the teenagers now they all like they have group chats. Like that's just I know it kind of had a different connotation from when I was younger, but for them it's just how they talk.
yeah, I was at a small little party a few weeks ago here in Peru, and one guy there has a daughter like 7 years old maybe, and she broke her leg. And the doctor said that kids are breaking their legs more easily these days because they're not hurting themselves anymore, because they're hurting their
Uh
eyes instead with the
yeah.
screens. Well, not necessarily hurting their eyes, but they're not touching the ground. They're not going outside and climbing trees and falling off the trees. So when they do go to a playground, much less often than we ever did, then they're more likely to break their bones because they're not used to
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Um well, I think that's all the questions I have unless you had anything else you guys wanted to add.
No, that's pretty much it, I guess. I mean, we went through all the fundamental of the problems, in our society today between men and women, and why that is. I think there are so many people out there, they just don't have any clue about this. No
Right.
one have been thinking about this area. And also when you look at those big dating communities and so on, they haven't looked into this area as well. The closest person that had some kind of idea about this is Ross Jeffries, for example. But NLP has been pseudoscience for so long, and we based as a communication faculty basically gave it up early in the beginning. It looked promising, but then they didn't continue with scientific reports and scientific adaptation into the the general area of communication and interpersonal communication. But he was like one of the closest one. But other than that, no one is speaking about this. No one knows about this.
Right.
But you're talking about the academic side, or people that actually work with people, relationship experts like psychotherapists, psychologists and so on. They know this very well. They know this inside out. But the general public have no idea what that is. So for everyone who actually listen to this, I mean, it's probably going to be, an eye opener of how does it actually work. Many times when the dating community, people that represent red pill, manosphere, and so on, try to convince you about those stuff, I think you many times get confused because maybe that is not exactly how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
It works for you or your female friends. It's like, yeah, but this guy is so cool. He has so much money, so successful, and he have like the facial expression of being James Bond. And you're like, yeah, but that is not really the thing that makes him charming, is it?
Mm.
It's not really what you fall for. Yeah, but would you actually go with a normal guy that have a normal work? Yeah, as long as he's charming. And that just, why is that? Well, scientifically, we know this already. But it's very hard for those that represent something to try to convince females about this because they don't agree. They just don't agree many times.
Yeah.
You probably have seen that a lot of times as well. Like, I cannot really agree that money means everything. You can't agree on this.
Well, and women say things. It doesn't mean that's what we do. So, the women that say they want to date a guy that's 6 foot, like all that stuff, I mean, who they actually date isn't always true.
Yeah, I mean, the preferences doesn't dictate how attractive they feel towards a certain person. In the end, the holistic attraction and to do with neurotransmitters. I mean, as I told you before, so many women, beautiful women, their current boyfriend was not their type, but they became their type.
Yeah.
I've seen that over and over again.
And on the show, I used to think it was insane, these standards that I would hear, but then I would learn who they would date in real life. And I'm like, oh, that's nothing that she said at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just think about it. If we take away, men can do that, but they can actually look at women and almost rate them of their holistic attraction level. They can basically rate them. Women can't do that. So when they look at a bunch of men without them saying a word, and then they try to rate them based on their money, their status, or whatever it is, they don't know what to say even. So if we only go with that, of course, more money is better than no money, right? But that's the only element into it. And then the woman can oh, this guy have the highest ranking. I want to go with him. And then after 30 minutes into the date, it's ooh, he was an asshole. I don't like him. He was arrogant and only thinking about himself. No, it's not for me. And she just leave. It can so easily be that with women. No question about it. If she doesn't feel good with him, it doesn't matter what kind of car he has. She just don't give a damn.
Yeah.
I've seen it all. And that is a lot more truth than, no, but she should like him in any case because he have a Ferrari, right? Or a Lamborghini. Trust me, it doesn't help at all.
I've never dated a guy with a sports car. I don't know. Maybe that's another woman's experience.
That Lamborghini example, what contraceptive do you use? Well, I don't have a Lamborghini, so that's my contraception right there. No, those beliefs are just ridiculous. Well, it's kind of funny where a lot of red pill creators, podcasts, or whatever, or just the people viewing them, it's woman A, woman B, and woman C say all these unrealistic things. He has to make $250,000, and they never seen $250,000 before, and he has to be XYZ, blah blah blah. But you cannot have this. It's nothing new. I was seeing this a long time before any of this stuff was seen on YouTube. It's nothing new, but you cannot have this template and say, I am looking for someone to fit into this shape that I have come up with. Otherwise, I will never marry them. I've seen women go that way years ago when they ended up becoming older and never getting married. And now they're wondering why. Well, maybe not even wondering why or admitting that they're wondering. but they never get to settle because they were too specific on looking for someone who fits their
The
mold
checkbox.
than for
Yeah.
the person who will actually fall in love with you. Like, you should not be having this checklist, but the person you will actually love is the one that you should marry. Like, there should be no cookie cutting in this kind of thing. I did not come up with this weird, crazy, random list as a projection in the future saying, I will not marry a woman unless she's from Peru and she's this height and she has all these other things that she might have. And then, oh, look, I just randomly
I mean, you were
fell into that.
probably
I
you
never would have fucking predicted that.
you probably were open to anything, right? I mean, as long as she was attractive enough.
As a man, it's
Yeah.
different,
Yeah.
you know, but I think everyone may have their own delusions to some extent outside of dating in general, and it just may fall upon anyone and everyone. But essentially, I don't think those things are generally important. It's just like great for content because people like people like me, maybe myself included, would watch something like that and be like, huh, she's dumb. And it's just like something to kind of laugh about or be like, this is ridiculous. But
Yeah, they don't mean it.
you cannot categorize or cookie cut love. Like, I'm not gay, I'm not gonna fall in love with a man, but aside from that, I can't fucking cookie cut love.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on today. It's really been a pleasure.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation we had, and I think it was really important for the society as well. So it was
Yeah.
great, Pearl.
Yeah. Can you maybe say where the people can find you guys? Instagram, Twitter, YouTube.
Okay, so on YouTube, I have my own channel called The Silk Method, and I also have my own website, thesilkmethod.com. So you can find me on those two. Also on Instagram at The Silk Method. So you can find me there and go in more depth into this area. And specifically on my website, we also provide free information. We provide courses and so on. So feel free to check it out.
As for me, Instagram, Ice White Official, everywhere. Just Google Ice White and look at the good things. And aside from YouTube, YouTube is Game Global, and we just reached 10,000 subscribers. I'm trying not to drop the fucking cake. 10,000 subscribers. I just got the cake today. We reached that 4 days ago. Real subscribers, beautiful subscribers, masculine subscribers. Oh, whatever. But that's where you can find me. Notably, we had some fun things like just a few months ago, I hosted on the channel the craziest thing, mystery versus Ross Jeffries debate that is
wow.
becoming one of our biggest videos.
Who won?
But yeah, aside from that,
Who won?
Huh?
Who won?
Out of the poll that was released, people preferred mystery at about 66% to 33%. So mystery came out more favorably according to the people who watched it. But it was a friendly debate. It wasn't like a heated one or anything like that. They're friends, so it was a beautiful collaboration that people waited 20 years to see, and we were able to make that happen.
Wow. Well, thank you guys so much. This has been great. Guys, make sure you like the channel on your way out, like the video. Go subscribe to both of their channels. Subscribe to the Audacity Network. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.